Hi, everybody. Welcome to Experts Dig In with Doggies for Dementia. I am Carmen DeValis, and I'm the founder of Doggies for Dementia Foundation. So, welcome to our show. And today I'm welcoming a wonderful guest, Joanna LaFleur, who
Hello.
is, hi, Joanna. And she happens to be CEO of Memory Lane, which many of us know as like a personal care home or in your case, specific for people with dementia. And I love that. Welcome, Joanna.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. We're going to dig into kind of a tough topic today, and that has to do with I've heard various terms, but the one that's most common are behavior issues. I've had guests that refer to them as expressions, which is I think a great way to, and you refer to them as,
Reactions.
yeah, I really like that because
Mhm.
technically when we have, no matter what we're doing, we're reacting to our environment,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's begin with, we're going to talk about how some help management too, or what families can do. But I
Yeah.
want to first just kind of breeze through and talk about what kind of reactions are typical, may or may not be, but we commonly see with people with dementia.
Yeah. So just a couple, verbal aggression, physical aggression, could be extreme emotional, like just crying a lot. It could be, becoming agitated, like pacing, trying to leave the house. And so those are kind of like the main ones that we see.
Okay. Yeah. So physical aggression could be hitting or biting
Hitting,
or
biting,
shoving,
spitting. Yeah.
yeah, closing doors,
Hmm.
even things like that, or throwing things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Early in my, I probably haven't shared this very much, but very early for me, I was 15 and I worked as a nurse's aide. I was certified by 16, so a nurse's aide in a nursing home in the little town I grew up in. And even the term Alzheimer's, this is in the 70s, the mid 70s, the term Alzheimer's wasn't even, or even dementia. We just heard it as senility.
Yeah.
And, I was, I look back now at how many times things were thrown at me, or, I was pushed or shoved, and we had no idea, but I also knew, I could tell even then it was a reaction to fear, and my
Yes.
approach was so important that I stay calm and cool, and not really have a huge response to things
Yeah.
that normally I go, what is going on
Yeah.
here, right? So
Mhm.
even at that age, I knew, like, cool, calm, and collected, because this
Yeah.
is really weird. I didn't know.
It is. It's
Yeah,
challenging for sure.
yeah. All right. So, okay. So a situation. So, what do you, how do you counsel for your staff, for your caregivers, and for family members? What do we do?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that helps us is because we do find we get some of the most challenging people, people that like no one else would take because they're extremely aggressive and that kind of stuff. But I think the biggest thing to understand, first of all, uh, is what's going on in dementia and why they're having that. It's because of the frontal lobe issues. It's also because of fight or flight. So like something comes at us and we get scared, our immediate reaction is run away or try to punch, right? So lots of times it typically is like you said, because they're afraid or confused,
Hmm.
and they're not trying to be mean, they're not trying to hurt you. And I think trying to take the emotion of like, oh, they're not, they're just mean, they're horrible to me, they're trying to hurt me, trying to kind of take that out of that, which can be really challenging when it's your own loved one.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different for us because we're caring for people that are other people's loved ones.
Right.
But I think that's important. And I think we talk a lot about how to have empathy in the situation, and what it means to kind of put yourself in their shoes and figure out why they're doing what they're doing and step back from the situation. Especially when it comes to physical aggression, we tend to tell our caregivers to definitely step back. We don't want, we're not going to let someone just sit there and get punched.
Right.
So if you need to step back, if it's someone that's extremely like walking physically aggressive, you might need to like run away from them and hide in a room for a little while. And you obviously need to protect yourself too.
Yeah, and I want to stop there for just a second. Such an important piece because I think a lot of times the message for caregivers, for family members is it's the disease, not the person. And what gets translated is I just have to take it because
No,
it's the disease, but that is not the case. And safety for you
it
is
is.
key too.
You can't take care of someone else if you're not safe. So
Right.
you definitely have to make yourself safe. If it is we've had some extremely violent people, and if it is that difficult of a situation, you need to walk in the other room, hide, and call 911 and have the police come. And we have done that before, where we've
Yeah.
had people to help us, because ultimately I'm not going to keep people in severe danger. But I think then after that, it's really figuring out what happened in that situation and why. So for example, we had one resident who he thought that memory lane was his own home. And so when he came out of his room, he was like, "Why are you guys here? I didn't invite you to my home. You need to get out."
And that makes sense because
Yeah,
it's small and it's like a home. It's like
yeah,
you want it to feel like a home. So I can
exactly.
understand that confusion. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we would try to talk with him, and say, we would come up with stories that would make sense for his home. So we would say, like, we're here as housekeepers. Your wife hired us to be your housekeeper so that we could clean and make your house clean for the next day, because he really liked things clean.
Okay.
He also liked that we cooked for him, so we would use that one too. Like, we're here to do the cooking.
Okay.
Um,
So it's kind of a white lie. I mean, it's
yeah,
not complete truth, but it's not completely not true. Because that's another question that comes up quite a bit. Do we be truthful or do we kind of go along with a delusion? And do we flat out sometimes say something that's not true, but it is calming? And
yeah, I think it depends on the type of dementia, because when you have vascular dementia, if you do lie, they're going to know you lied and they're going to call you on it. But other types of dementia, you do have to.
mm,
And I think you're trying to figure out what's the best for this person in this situation. What's the thing that you can do to, again, make them feel better, make you feel better, create quality of life, and create calm. And so you try to figure out what's a solution to the problem. That's kind of what we as a team come up with, is
mhm,
why are they doing this and how can we make it better? Another thing that we found was, um, and this person had frontotemporal dementia, which can be one of the most aggressive.
yeah.
And we found that he really was annoyed by a lot of noise. His ears were really sensitive to noise. So he would be sensitive by like people coming in the house. So before we would ever have like a musical guest or someone come and clean the carpets, we would start an hour before and we would tell him every 15 minutes, this person is coming and this is why, and we're going to have music and it's going to be really nice. And he's going to be coming in the house. He's going to be playing in the living room. And then we would tell him again the next 15 minutes. And then when it came to meals, it turns out it was just too overstimulating for him to eat with everyone at the table, even though there was only 6 people, and 2 caregivers. So we ended up having a caregiver eat with him in his room, or
Mm.
eating after the meal was over with a caregiver. So kind of like figuring out the problems and fixing them.
Yeah. I love that. So it's back to the basics. So
Yeah.
what could have been, and I love it how you're saying this because what I'm hearing there too is some trial and error
Oh,
and
yeah.
trying to figure it out. It's not I got it right away and we figured it out, and what worked today may not work tomorrow, and
Exactly.
it's taking another look and reassessing, right? So what's
Yeah.
different today? And I think stimulation is a common stressor or a common thing. And it can be in ways that we don't realize, right? I mean, I recognize it as a nurse practitioner. I would go into a community and it would say holiday time. So all the Christmas lights and the
Oh,
tree
yeah.
and the activity. And it would throw some people off because
Sure.
that's not the typical way it looks. I mean,
Mhm.
everything was changed. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, kind of finding the stressor. I mean, same thing with verbal aggression. And sometimes, we will say like, like if we had some person that was really challenging and he would just scream at you and throw things and try to hit you. So then there would be a time where we would be like, you know what? I want to help you right now, but I'm not going to get hurt. And I don't like to be called that name. So I'm going to come back when you can calm down. So then we would leave and give him like 15, 20 minutes and then come back and say, can I help you now? Are you going to be calm? And then sometimes that would work. So I think, again, just trying, sometimes it wouldn't work too.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's times where, we would end up having someone in the room to be the bad guy and someone in the room to be the good guy. So someone, when as far as like doing care, having someone to hold their hands and tell them it's okay, I'm really sorry you feel like this, explain what's happening, and then have someone doing the care
I
at the
see.
same time. So sometimes that can work too, but then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they can, if it depends on the person, because sometimes that can backfire on you and they can feel like they're being like double teamed. So you have to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that they don't feel that way. So
Yeah. Nobody
uh,
wants to feel manipulated and
yeah.
yeah,
So I
kind of
think,
tricked. And
communicating, trying to find new ways, being creative, finding things that worked in their past. There's always going to be like one or two or three things that someone is really passionate about. And that could be like vanilla ice cream. It could be like their cat. It could be their grandkids. It could be their trip to Italy. It could be their nursing background. It's one of those things that you can try to, once you've kind of calmed the situation, then redirect to something else. But
mm-hmm.
I always ask people first, before you just go right to redirection, you have to fix the problem first.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
for
I
example,
love that. And
yeah,
I don't often hear that. I hear redirect, redirect. But the first thing is to look, what
yeah.
is this? Because sometimes it's something we're not.
So yeah, so you have someone that's looking for their mom, and they can't find their mom, trying to, or their spouse or something. One good thing would be a validation thing, saying, "Well, where do you think they are?" Is something that you could say, and then, or you could say, "Well, they're not here right now. I believe they're coming later. But while we wait, can you help me with dinner?"
Mm-hmm.
So first fixing the problem and not going right to, where's my mom? Okay, let's go play bingo. Because they're going to be like,
Uh-huh.
no, I'm not playing bingo. I want to know where my mom
Yeah,
is.
you didn't help me with my problem.
Yeah.
I'm looking for my mom. Right, right. That's
Yeah.
really, yeah. And another thing that I hear is, and I used to get a lot of questions about this in the clinic, especially around holidays. There are kids.
Yeah.
Should we do something different? And I think it goes back to what you're talking about. It's assess and see, because the stimulation might be too much. That visit time might be very short, and then that a person needs to go into and just on their own in another room for some quiet.
Yeah, it depends on the person and depends on the disease process. Sometimes they can watch kids play and be loud and everything and they're fine. And sometimes they immediately become agitated. So I think it's just really watch your person and have a backup plan.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's we all feel that. We all feel different responses to things, right? And
Absolutely.
but we're able to filter for that, or to talk ourselves away from a certain feeling, right?
Yeah.
And but when dementia, that piece is impaired. And you talked a little bit about the frontal, because it's a big question, like, why does this happen?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not sure. How do you explain the frontal lobe and filter and things? 'Cause I have a little trick I used to describe it as. I don't know if you.
I guess the way I explain it is, if something happens to us, like if someone is, doing something to us or someone was helping us.
I lost your sound there for a second. I lost your sound,
Yes.
Joanna. There you are.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So because I was saying their verbal skills are lacking, so they can't tell you like, I don't like that. Please stop. They're showing you it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
I just explain it as it's just no longer being filtered. I mean, they're thinking things and just blurting them out. They're, they're feeling things and acting on them because they just don't have that part of the brain anymore.
Yeah, it's like a net. We have a pretty thick net, and there's a lot of things coming at it, and we learn the appropriate things to get through, right?
Okay.
Like for that
Yeah.
moment, yeah, for that moment, we learn as little kids what's okay and what's not. And
Sure.
then with dementia, there's these holes in that filter, and pretty soon things that we would ordinarily not say or do because it's not acceptable just comes out without
Yeah.
stopping.
Yeah.
And we all have it where our brains just kind of, we learn appropriate or not as we grow up, and then when that filter gets broken, it's a tough thing. And you're
Yeah.
right, that and frontal temporal dementia is a specific type, like Alzheimer's is a type of dementia, that's another type. And
Yeah.
that filter is in really impaired, right? And
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
things that, yeah, I wouldn't. The things you hear is not what you might expect.
And my thing is like, you can't do anything about that for your loved one. So, I mean, to say like, oh, I'm so sorry that they're doing that, or I'm so offended, I'm so embarrassed, like it isn't their fault. So like we like to say the person with dementia isn't giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time, which
Mm-hmm.
doesn't minimize the fact that it is really hard to care for someone with dementia either. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to be able to give yourself grace and give your person grace when you're caring for each other. And it's okay to say things like, this is really hard, or this feels frustrating. To have empathy for both of you guys.
Right. Yeah, because I've seen it with especially married couples, but in family and with parents too. Things come out that are, and then you wonder like, wow, was that in their brain all the time? They really think that way about me? And they didn't know. They didn't know, or then it's like all this wondering, and it's the reality is
It is.
so distorted and
Mm-hmm.
challenging, and to
It is.
separate our own emotions out of it,
It's
and I know
hard.
very hard. Yeah, to say
Mhm.
it's not hard and simply do this or simply do that is not fair. It's not fair to the caregivers who are
Yeah,
really
for sure.
struggling with that. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I think sometimes support groups and talking to
Yes.
experts can really help, like
Yeah.
family experts too, on how
Yes.
they meant what worked, what didn't work, and that everything they're feeling is normal for the
Normal.
situation.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely normal. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a tough thing. And so I'm really, really, we're very fortunate, and I'm really glad you're here to talk about this topic. And we could go on and on because it
Yeah.
is, it's a big important topic, and it really lends to people for more social isolation.
It
Uh,
does.
Period, because they don't want to take their loved one out when they're
Mhm.
afraid of what might be said and people aren't going to understand.
Yeah.
And it creates things to be more lonely. So the more we learn about it,
Yeah.
and
And connect with others that are going through it. Facebook groups, support groups, like you said, reading things, watching short videos of things is so helpful.
mm-hmm, yeah, and learning how to manage that, because there still is a way to get out and go out, and it's a matter of timing and how you respond to it as well. And
Yeah.
you know,
Finding what will help calm them in this situation, or maybe just taking an outing in the car, or
mhm.
taking it when there's not very many people in a restaurant and things like that.
Right, right. Is as a matter to adapt to the situation, but not to alleviate anything that might be enjoyable for
For
the
sure.
family and the person, the person
Yeah.
with dementia. Yeah. So I know we're going to have a lot of questions about this, and we welcome that. So
Yes,
please,
absolutely.
put them in the comments down below so that we can respond to it, because this is a big, big and important topic,
Yeah.
because as I said, it affects um, just about every aspect
Yeah.
of our lives,
Yeah.
for both the families and those directly impacted. So thank you so much, Joanna. I
Okay.
appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, yes. And we'll have Joanna's information on there too.
Yep.
And yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Experts Dig In with Doggies for Dementia. And we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Everyone.